and welcome to yet another session of Bilva Annual Festival. We at Damru, as you know, celebrate Bilva every year in the month of July. I'm Mauli, founder and executive director of Damru Yoga and Sound Therapy Studio. And every year we choose different themes for this festival that we do. And so for last year, our theme was cultural appropriation of yoga and the necessity to embrace the inherent Indianness of the yogic tradition. And this year, the focus of Bilva is celebrating the great teacher Sri T. Krishnamacharya and his holistic teachings in the KYM tradition as taught by his lifetime student and son, Sri T.K.V. Desikachar. And there is a reason why we are doing this this year. Damru is proudly announcing a teacher training program coming September in collaboration with Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. And towards the end of this session, we will also put in a short video for those of you who are interested in the training program to give you a brief outline of what is this program all about. And mind you, it is a very in-depth kind of a training and a very curated program that we're offering. So, with that, let us proceed to our talk today. As you know, I'll also share something about this yoga festival Bilva that we conduct. Bilva is conducted under the wing of Damru Foundation. Damru Foundation is a public charitable trust founded with the aim to promote and implement the traditional yogic sciences and to increase awareness about wellness and harmony in that segment of society who are in dire need of holistic well-being but may not be able to afford it. So, if you wish to support our efforts, do consider contributing to the Damru Foundation, and you can find the links to the payment options in the description box below. And your contributions will help us support more such people, and at the same time, we are being able to bring more such valuable content and scholarly speakers from across the globe to share their knowledge with us. So, with this introduction to Bilva and Damru, I am very happy to invite today's speaker, Ms. Saraswathi Vasudevan. Namaste, ma'am. Welcome to the session, and thank you for joining us today. Before I hand over the session to you, I'll give our audiences a brief introduction about Saraswathiji. Saraswathi Vasudevan is a yoga teacher, trainer, and therapist in the tradition of Sri T. Krishnamacharya. She has close to 3 decades of study, practice, and teaching experience in this tradition, having studied directly under Sri T.K.V. Desikachar for over 17 years. She has 2 master's degrees in nutrition and psychology from the University of Madras, Chennai, and a postgraduate diploma in yoga studies from the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. In 2010, she founded YogaVahini, a specialized yoga training, therapy, and research center, along with her husband Sundar, with the aim of making the transformative and healing wisdom of yoga and personalized yoga therapy more accessible to everyone. YogaVahini has centers in Chennai and Hyderabad and presence in other cities of India and around the world. Yoga Vahini's yoga therapy training program was the first course in India to receive the international accreditation with IAYT. It was in 2016. 2016, she co-founded Yoga Vahini Foundation, a public charitable trust that aims to bring yoga and yoga therapy to rural and underserved populations through yoga camps, trainings, and awareness programs. Saraswati ji has traveled extensively across the globe offering workshops, retreats, and study programs to earnest students of yoga, and Yoga Vahini continues to expand its boundaries to include a diverse and vibrant community of teachers, therapists from all over the world. She is currently serving on the voluntary board of directors of Yoga Alliance, the largest international yoga certifying and credentialing body, which provides strategic direction that advances the development and livelihood of yoga professionals around the world. And those who are yoga enthusiast, I should say, do check out the programs of Yoga Vahini. There are some very interesting lineup of programs that they offer, and I can also put Saraswatiji's website and the social media handles in the description box below. So do check that out. With that, Saraswatiji, I hand over the session to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mauli. I want to thank you for inviting me into this program. It's an honor to be part of the annual festival and to be part of a team of teachers who have been speaking so wonderfully, and I have been listening to some of these. I want to start with the prayer to our teacher's teacher, Shri T. Krishnamacharya. श्रीकृष्णवागीशयतीश्वराभ्याम् सम्प्राप्तचक्राङ्कणभाष्यसारम् श्रीनूत्नरङ्गेन्द्रयतौ समर्पितस्वम् श्रीकृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमीडे विरोधे कार्तिके मासे शतताराकृतोदयम् योगाचार्यं कृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमहं भजे श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः.
So, Saraswatiji, I'm honored to have you on this platform today. And like you know, we have been talking about the tradition that is coming from T. Krishnamacharya as in the way that was taught or given to us by Sri T.K.V. Desikachar. So in this tradition, and you have studied for a long, long time with these great masters, as I would like today to, so we have been in different talks addressing various facets of this tradition. So today I would maybe like to start with what is the meaning of Vini Yoga. We hear this in this tradition again and again. So there are certain kramas and then there is Vini Yoga. So can you just explain this term and maybe we can start our journey from here?
Yes, Mauli. But before that, I would like to clarify that I have not seen Krishnamacharya. So I don't know Krishnamacharya. All that I know of his teachings is what I have learned from his son and student Shri T.K.V. Desikachar. And when I joined Yoga Mandiram to work as part of the editorial team of Darshanam, I was fresh out of college, barely 21, and I didn't even know what I was getting into. So I had the good fortune of being part of a very small community of teachers and students who continue to work with Desikachar over a long period of time. So my experience and learning completely comes from learning with Desikachar and other senior teachers from this tradition who have studied with Krishnamacharya and Desikachar, and I continue to study with these teachers and work with them. So I'm fortunate that my learning has been a continuous process, and so there is an opportunity for really soaking in and deepening the understanding and really widening also the perspective. Sometimes when we go into one thing, we tend to go to, and sometimes it can become very narrow. But to keep this really expansive and see the possibilities that emerge from such a beautiful tradition, where the breath is the anchor for everything. Now, To come back to your question about Vini Yoga and Vinyasa Krama, I would think these two are the most fundamental core principles of this tradition. Vini Yoga, Tasya Bhumishu Vini Yoga, the third chapter of Yoga Sutra, talks about it in the context of providing the direction for dhyanam and the deeper antaranga sadhana for a practitioner. That you offer what is appropriate for that individual based on their bhumi, where they are located. Right? So if you go back to the Sankhya philosophy, we know the different bhumis. And of course, we have so many different frameworks that talk about the bhumi, the chakras, and everything. But if we primarily look at uh, this principle, it is about meeting the person where they are. Okay, meeting them and listening to them and offering them what is appropriate from their frame of reference, not from where we come. Yeah, and it is a constant recalibration that is required for a teacher or a therapist to be able to do that. We means special, vishesha. Me is nitaram, continuous. Yeah, because it's not like a one-time thing. I offer something special to an individual. That individual is changing, and the context is changing. So, to offer what is appropriate according to the changing reality of that person. And yoga, of course, what you may connect them to that will help them to move towards themselves. Looking at yoga as Adhyatma Vidya. Yeah. What will really help this person to have a quieter mind? What will really help this person to gather their inner resources and work towards their own development, growth, whatever you might call? So that is the principle of Vini Yoga as I understand it today. And Vinyasa Krama is another principle. So Vinyasa is again, something that is commonly used in every tradition. You take the dance tradition or the music tradition or visual arts, whatever. There is a Vinyasa. The special again, Nyasa means to place. So if you look at asana, it is a um, Sharira Anga Vinyasa, uh, the definition given by Vamadeva. So you place different parts of the body in a special way together so that the asana can give you the most optimal benefits that is possible for the body to offer you through that configuration. So the word krama is very interesting because krama means sequence or steps. Okay. Now I want to look at krama as something that can only be understood when we have a deep learning or observation of nature. Yeah, everything is in krama in nature. There is a natural order, what we call niyati in Sankhya, what we call shilam in Yoga Sutra. There is a natural order in nature. And to understand it through observation and to align oneself to it uh, and align to the changing nature is really what I would say is Vinyasa Krama. So this is part of Ayurveda. For example, Dinacharya, Ritucharya, how different doshas change according to seasons, time of the day. And you constantly learn to recalibrate your food, your lifestyle, your sleep, so many things, right? Similarly, when the child is born and is growing up, there is a certain natural order of unfolding of certain potentials at different ages. Okay, there are some capabilities that can be nurtured, that can be directed in a positive way. There are some strengths, there are some challenges that also come with that particular age. Then there are roles and responsibilities as we grow up. As a adult, as a householder, we have something that's very specific to that person, and an older person has a different kind of krama that one has to follow. So the whole idea of Vinyasa Krama that Krishnamacharya has given also, there are references in Yoga Makaranda and Yoga Rahasya very specifically, that every individual you have to offer the practice of yoga according to their stage of life. So Srishti Krama, how you teach children for really allowing that unfolding to happen within the child, at all levels, not just at the physical level, but at the emotional level, at the psychological level, at the cognitive level, so many levels. And so you offer practices that are designed that will appeal to the child, that will be interesting for the child, that they will love it and they will take to it. So, as a teacher, I need to know how to teach a child. And it's very different from how you teach a young adult or an older adult, right? So, Srishti means creation. So, how do you keep that creative aspect alive in the practice for the child? Then, as the child grows up, you come to the Shikshana Krama. And Shikshana Krama, of course, I would think it is almost non existent today because it is like following the rules of the Vedic chanting. Very specific, classical posture. You have to do it the way the textbook is saying. So, you should have built up that practice from the Srishti Krama to come into Shikshana Krama. Then we have the Sthiti Krama, where once a person enters into the Grahastha then they have duties, responsibilities, they can't spend a lot of time in their practice. So they need to really uh, do a practice that will protect what they have already gathered and sustain it so that they can progress on the path. And the whole journey is not moving outward, is to live in the world in such a way that I can continue to move inward. Yeah, and the seed is sown very young. You see all the stories in the Upanishads, they're not taught to 70-year-old, 80-year-old. Maybe Bhagavad Gita was taught to Arjuna very late in his life. But Arjuna must have got this understanding of what is the Brahman, what is the self, very, very young, to whatever extent the child can understand through analogies, stories, metaphors. Yeah, you see the Nachiketa's conversation with Yama or um, who's this Shvetaketu with his father Uddalaka. All these are interesting stories planting the seed. And then the whole journey through different kramas is to nurture that seed and keep it alive so that the child will remember where I need to journey towards. And even though we get caught up in life and the problems of life, one thread is Adhyatma Vidya that has to guide us inward all the time. And how do you maintain that balance as a grahastha and as we grow older? Then we come to the Adhyatmika Krama. So the whole journey is about going inward. So are you really prepared to move inward, or are we still holding on to a lot of the Laukika Vishaya, the problems of life? It's not only that I have taken care of my children, or I have to take care of my grandchildren, and I don't know, like the wealth that I have accrued, and so many complexities that we get caught up with. How many of us are even ready to actually say, I want to sit quietly, I want to meditate, I want to understand what is more than what is apparent? Okay. Now, Sthiti Krama is also understood as Rakshana Krama. Rakshana means to protect. This is a very essential part because this is what Yoga Sutra says, no? Heyam Dukkham Anagata. You can't do anything about the dukkham that has already happened, and what you're experiencing today is a result of the past. But anticipate and avoid future dukkha so that you're not continuously getting caught in the cycle of karma and dukkha. So Rakshana Krama is to really protect what you have already gathered and to progress. Sthiti Krama is to stabilize, and I would look at these two as parallel kramas. Okay, we have something called Shakti Krama that Krishnamacharya also taught to young adults and a lot of people. When you want to build strength and you want to build certain capabilities, of course, today we're not looking so much as I am a warrior and things like that. But let's say a sports person, for example, or a musician, or somebody who has the need to develop physical strength. Even our orientation can be like that. The student wants to really have a strong body and will and all that. So then you build the Shakti Krama aspect. And that again has to be understood from the frame of reference of the student. Then we have one krama that sort of traverses through all these, which is the Cikitsa krama, what we call the therapeutic krama. So again, it is somebody overcome by illness or any kind of disturbance that can disturb the mind and make us feel that we're not in balance, we're not having a sense of well-being. Yeah, need not be a particular disease or anything. Then We have to see how it impacts the person's roles, responsibilities, their capabilities, their strength, their confidence. For example, somebody who's very, very confident can actually feel a lot of self-doubt and uncertainty because of illness or any kind of impact. Yeah. So then Cikitsa Krama comes in. So it may be a child, it may be a young adult, it may be an older person, it may be a very old person. Anybody at any stage can experience illness, and illness is natural. Is as much part of our life, illness and death, as much as birth and life, right? And health. So, how do you then fine tune your practice to meet the changes of this krama? There is a natural order that the illness is coming to show you and say there is an imbalance, do something about it. How do you understand it and bring the person back on track so they can go back to the Srishti Krama or the Rakshana Krama or the Adhyatmika Krama very easily? Having said that, I want to say that these are not watertight compartments. Most of the time, people come in Rakshana Krama with some therapeutic needs. As a therapist or teacher, I should not convert them to a completely Cikitsa Krama student. Take away what they are already capable of doing and make the practice too simple that they feel like they have lost some strength while addressing something else. So maybe some aspects I have to look at Cikitsa Krama, but I also have to retain the Rakshana Krama aspect. If it is a child, I have to retain the Srishti Krama aspect. So older person, I have to be able to build in the Adhyatmika Krama aspect. Need not be an older person. I would say starting from even 20s, we have to keep the seed of Adhyatma alive. Otherwise, we can get completely lost. One cannot come back to it when you're too old, right? So we have to be able to look at these things as not mutually exclusive approaches, but something that a teacher has to understand and see how to help this person to tune themselves to the practice in a way that is aligned with the natural order, a larger intelligence. That's how I.
So, what I see is that it's a very natural consecutive progression that happens, and there is nothing that is force fit because it is just evolving by itself. So, from the Srishti Krama to the Siddhi, and then you come to the Adhyatmic Krama, it's just a natural evolution, and how we can actually configure that in the best possible potential way.
Yeah,
And then within that, so now this is a natural flow that happens for every individual, which we have taken as a base, and then from the Yoga Sutra we've taken the Vinyasa concept. What I also see in this tradition is that while the larger way, when we can see that progression, there is also a very individualized approach that happens within.
yeah,
So I would then go into, because you are more, you are a yoga therapist, you're working more in the Cikitsa Krama as well, and like you said, they would always overlap. What are the principles, or what are the pointers that you would keep in mind when you are addressing, or maybe say, what would Desikachar Sir teach how to unfold this therapeutic approach amidst these kramas?
yeah. So that it has to be individual centric and not focused on a disease or a particular diagnosis is very clear in this tradition. We are meeting the person as they are and what they bring to the table, not about understanding a problem and the ramifications of it. So, some of the principles we would look at very carefully and keep at the back of my mind as a teacher or therapist, because it's like a lens through which you look at somebody. So, what are your optics in the way you look at somebody? One is to remember that it is individual centric, it is always about the individual. If one of my teachers or therapists is asking what to do for this condition or that condition, I say, I'm not going to respond to your question. Yeah. You tell me who the person is. Can you understand more about that person and come back and discuss with me? Then we can look at it. I don't have any approaches for conditions, it's only for people. So every framework that we use is for the individual, whether it's the Panchamaya model or the Sankhya philosophy or Ayurveda or anything else that we may use in therapy or even in Rakshana Krama. Yeah. So individual centric, not disease centric, holistic, and not fragmented. So it's possible that somebody comes with a frozen shoulder and we are so caught up with it because they are so caught up with it, and we are not able to see any other aspect of that individual, right? That they have anxiety, that maybe they have flat feet, maybe they have very stiff back that is actually worsening the frozen shoulder. They are stressed out, whatever that might be. So looking at the person holistically is very important, and there are so many different frameworks that can support us in this understanding. Then, to understand that fundamentally yoga is based on the Sankhya um, theory of cosmos, right? Evolution, where the mind and the body are not separate. So we cannot say this is for the mind, this is for the body. It is not a dichotomy, it is a continuum, right? The most uh, subtle aspect is pure awareness, what we call the Mahat or the Buddhi. And the grossest aspect is the physical body that is tangible. So this continuum and everything that the person is experiencing is impacting this whole continuum all the time. So I need to keep that in mind, that it is not fragmented, it is not a dichotomy between the mind and the body. Another interesting idea, which I'm sure many of the other teachers have also highlighted, is function over form, right? You may look at a course sheet and say, oh, they have taught somebody Virabhadrasana, Surya Namaskar, Parshvottanasana. But how is that person experiencing that? How is that asana actually impacting them? And how do you look at that is more important than the form that you achieve? In fact, the form tells you very less if you don't understand the function. Yeah, so again, this is coming back to the natural order, that everything in nature is designed, the form is designed to meet a function, including our body, including the form of our organs and everything, right? So, going back to that fundamental intelligence and saying, how can I understand the functions that are required, based on that, choose the form and then modify it for that individual and then adapt it to their changing needs. So, function over form. Coming to process and not an input output kind of a, idea. It's not like I take a pill and then tomorrow I will be better. A lot of people think, okay, I do apanasana, back pain will go away. It's not like apanasana is a pill that you take and then the result is that your back pain will go away. Maybe apanasana may not suit somebody with the back pain, right? So, how do you understand the process of change? How is that asana or that breathing impacting that individual? That process has to be studied, not get caught up with output or outcome. I heard some of the other teachers talking about how sometimes the student does not even understand what's happening to them, and other people will notice it, right? That is a process, and that is what a therapist or a teacher has to pay attention to. What is really happening? How is the change happening? Can I study that more carefully? I know, and we all know that yoga will work. Okay, somebody who has not moved a limb, if they breathe deeply, if they even do some simple movement, they will feel a lot of relief. But is it changing the person at all levels? And what is the change that is happening is what we need to study. So, process. The other thing is that if it is yoga and if it is yoga therapy, it should be an evolving practice. It cannot be a vegetative practice. Yeah, because the individual is evolving, has a potential to evolve, and therefore is a practice actually enabling that, is it facilitating that unfolding to happen over a period of time. And that depends on whether a student will stay with us long enough. A lot of times people come with a problem and the problem goes away, the student goes away. The aim is very important, that something is bothering me. When what is bothering me goes away, then it's like, I don't need to take the pill anymore. But if somebody stays with you long enough, you see this unfolding happen so beautifully for that person. And at a very basic level is yoga or yoga therapy taking somebody from paratantra to swatantra, dependence on an external agency, to knowing that I can do something about it. Yeah, is it empowering the individual? Do they have a sense of agency? And this is very, very important, because very often when you go to a healing modality and all the power to even make decisions about what my treatment needs to be is taken away from me, it's completely paratantra. I may need it at some point in my life, depending on the situation. But if that is the normal thing, if that's the norm, then that's not going to help the individual, right? So, Swatantra is very important. That's one of the definitions given by Krishnamacharya to yoga. So, that these principles, I would think, are very, very fundamental that we need to keep in our mind.
So, you beautifully encompass the principles. So, what are the things that we should be taking care of? Now, if I compare the two models, one the popular model of you just list down the diseases, say diabetes, and then this set of asanas or this set of breathing practices or whatever. Now, that in a way is well, I can say it is. When you have to teach, it becomes very easy in terms of, okay, this is the disease and these are the practices. But when the training happens in this tradition and we are not focusing, we are not disease centric, person centric, then it's a very different training that happens to a teacher. So teacher or therapist, whoever is studying, so from their side, so what is required for a yoga teacher? What you said were the principles or concepts that, okay, this should be done, this should be done, this should be. How do you inculcate that? Because they have to have a very keen observation or the assessment tools. Because now this is individual centric and that will keep changing with every case. So how do you train teachers or therapists?
So, we begin with the teacher training. In YogaVahini, we have a course that's even before teacher training, because we want to know whether people are ready for teacher training. So it's just what we call a yoga sadhana. So it's an 8-week program where people just come in to study yoga, the philosophy, the principles, practice, ground themselves in their own practice, even to know this is the line that I want to go in. Do I have the commitment and the discipline for it, and also the desire to want to help somebody? Without that, you can't become a teacher, right? So through yoga sadhana, people discover that, and then they may come into a teacher training program where we are teaching the fundamentals, principles of practice, for example. How to integrate breath with movement, and the Vinyasa Krama of each asana, how to do the ideal postures, what is the function, how to achieve that. Now that's like you are studying the alphabets, okay, and then you have to learn to make sentences using words and sentences, and then you write prose, right? Okay, for somebody with normal health, this is how I will teach. This is the sequence of asana, starting with standing, going to lying, then going to inversion, then prone. So there is a certain vinyasa krama there. So you learn even in pranayama what is the simplest techniques that you teach, and then how do you progress, how do you build the ratios, how do you introduce mantra, or how do you bring in bhavana, bandhas, all these as a vinyasa krama. So the teacher will learn all this to teach normal healthy people. If you ask me how many people in this world are normal healthy, I don't know really, right? Everybody comes with some problem or the other. So, therefore, a teacher also needs to know how to work with somebody and offer them something that is appropriate for their health and their needs. So, I would think this whole idea of building from learning the alphabets to the language to the prose, then poetry becomes therapy. You have to learn to break the rules, but break the rules with the understanding why you're breaking them, and to offer something very, very specific for that individual. It's like you take a posture and you know the functions of this posture, then you learn how to modify it for that individual so that they will get that function through that posture. Sometimes it may be that you break the vinyasa krama itself, help somebody to get into the final posture in a more easier way. For example, like Jatara Parivritti, you need strength in the back and abdomen to lift the legs, then to drop them to one side. But suppose I want to bring the function of Jatara Parivritti for somebody requiring therapy, but I don't have time to build their strengthening aspect, I can actually modify the Vinyasa Krama, get them to the final posture if they have that ability, enough strength and flexibility, then work with the breath in a way that they can get the benefit. So it is like poetry. You need to know how to fine tune the practice. So I would think as a teacher, one needs to know the asanas. Just looking at one tool, asana, which we primarily use. Learn how to modify it in a generic way. Learn how to modify it for a function. Learn how to modify it for an individual, for a function, for an individual with a specific need that is non-therapeutic, then for an individual that is therapeutic. So at all levels, one has to prepare the teacher. And I think more fundamental to learning the tools and techniques and know how to apply them is to know how to internalize these teachings through our own practice. Of course, we all know it is a very fundamental thing that I have to be rooted in my own practice, but not just the practice. Okay, my study has to be continuous, and my practice and my study should help my mind to be quiet enough so that it can reflect, it can internalize. The whole process of mananam and nididhyasanam has to happen so that I can really see how am I living my life? How am I practicing the yama niyamas? What is happening in my speech? How am I listening to somebody? Right? What are the choices I make with life? How do I relate to the larger world? What is my responsibility to the peace in the world, or how do I deal with that? I'm an integral part of the society. So how do I see myself? And how do I function as an individual in the society rather than just a yoga teacher? Because I have seen with all these years of teaching, sometimes you can get so caught up and so identified with this role that you don't see the rest of the world. And that's not a good thing for a yoga teacher, right? We are very much part of this world, and I have to see myself as that continuum. And then how do I live my life based on what I have learned, what I am teaching, and how I internalize it and change the way I'm living. Diet, lifestyle, all this becomes very, very important. Yeah. If I have not experimented with these things, I wouldn't have the conviction to offer to a student. So the antaranga sadhana, really working with ourselves through the meditative process. By meditation, I mean not just sitting quietly and calming the mind, but really inquiring into the nature of who I am. Why do I live the way I live? Why do I behave this way? Why do I think this way? What are my samskaras? And how am I projecting some of this onto somebody else? If I don't learn about myself, I can easily project my ideas onto a student. Mhm. And that's not what we are here for. So it's a lot of work we need to do with ourselves. And we need time, we need space, we need a community. I cannot practice this with people outside. I have to practice it with the community. So all this is very fundamental for a training of a yoga teacher. And I would say 1 year or 2 years is just foundation. You start your work after that. And it never ends. If you have made a lifetime commitment, this learning, this practice, this inquiry should never end. It is Dirghakala Nairantarya Satkara Adara Dridabhumi.
So now here we see that even while we are, I mean, at least in our minds, we are offering a solution to some care seeker, we're offering therapy or yoga practice. It's not a one-way thing because it is so individualized, and because you are also so connect. There is an evolution that happens at both ends, even for the person who is teaching and the person who is receiving it. So the beautiful coming together and assimilation that happens, what I see here is that there is no stagnancy. Like you said, sometimes we just get into a fixed image even of ourselves. So this is not offered at all in this. It cannot happen. There is no possibility because you have to evolve with every different person that comes to you. So not just the deep understanding of the care seeker, but at the same time an in-depth understanding of the practice, its function, and then how the form is uh, helping that function, and at the same time your own inquiry. So amalgamating these two with your own creative potential. So it's a win-win-win at every level. So there is no stagnancy upward at any way. So that's a beautiful coming together that happens. We could take one more question. Is that okay?
Sure. I think I need to talk about the Adhyatmika Krama.
So
Spoke about Rakshana Krama and Cikitsa Krama. Maybe we'll get to the Adhyatmika.
yeah, so yeah, we still have some time, so we can. So this holistic evolution that is happening at all levels. So we have been talking about building a yoga practice or a therapeutic intervention and how we assess and how we can actually design a practice. Eventually, like you said, that it is the process is not evolving it to go out, but to go within, understanding that. So we did talk about the Cikitsa Krama, the Rakshana Krama. Could we now go into Adhyatmika Krama? So what I feel is that okay, it might seem progressive or sequential that at a certain age or maturity level, you kind of start understanding things, but the seeds have to be sown way early on. So Adhyatmik Krama to me is like a whole lifetime which can then unfold maybe later with maturity. But that's my understanding. I would actually want to hear it from you.
So I want to go back to how Sir used to design practices. Whether it was a practice that he gave many of us at different points of time in our life. Even when I would go to him for a therapeutic need with a neck pain or a back pain, I had plenty of problems at that point to go back to him again and again. There will always be an Adhyatmika aspect to the practice. It is not purely a practice that is going to address the Annamaya, Pranamaya, and the Manomaya. It's something beyond that. So he will build in, let us say, a small chant or some nyasam, something that you can connect to. And even if it is a 20-minute practice, just 80 breaths or something you're taking, by the end of it, you feel the mind has become so quiet. mm, And you're able to touch a deeper aspect of yourself that you can't when the mind is busy, a lot of chitta vritti and all that. How does he do that? That is something that you really need to observe very carefully. It does not matter whether somebody comes saying, I want to learn meditation. He will build in a meditative quality into the practice. Sometimes my practice has been like 2 seconds inhale, 4 seconds exhale. 3 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale, and some simple movement. But at that point, that is all I could do. And it becomes so meditative because you are gathering all of your resources to just be fully present in that practice. And it is so beautiful because you've been offered something so precious by a teacher who understands you and who cares for you, and you take it as a very precious thing, as a gift, and you work with it. And then you go back. So this is the way I learned Adhyatmika Krama. Okay, through my own experience studying with Desikachar, and sometimes he might say, for 6 months, just chant Purusha Suktam every day. He never told me why I have to chant. He just said chant, and every day I would chant. To the extent that I even used to have dreams where in my dream I would chant the whole Purusha Suktam. But it did something. I can't tell you exactly what it did, but built, it built some confidence within me, changed something at a very fundamental level. That is what I would say, moving towards the Adhyatma. Some shift is happening. So all that he would say is help the person to have a quiet mind. Give them an experience of it. So it doesn't matter which age somebody comes with, some element of the Adhyatmika Krama can be introduced in the practice. Simple meditative practice. Slowly, someone learns that when my mind is quiet, actually I can look at things very differently. Then I respond to my situations very differently and it resolves the problem so easily. That is Adhyatma, right? We don't have to have any kind of esoteric experience. It's simply day to day life, how I am able to live my life better, how I'm able to be more inclusive of other people, how my mind expands, to reach out to people, to be more compassionate and understanding. That is Adhyatmika.
So I think in today's day and time, just enabling the person to just feel well or good also actually paves a way for a further inquiry. Because even that basics we are kind of lacking with the fast lifestyles that we are leading. So like you said, the 3 and 6 breaths, so inhale in 3, exhale in 6, they do it for a while and they automatically start becoming calmer. And that calmness will then give space for that inquiry that happens. So yeah, you're right. In an indirect way, it should be they should be introduced to that gradually so that it builds up to something meaningful. But the kind of shraddha that is required, like you said, he told you to do Purusha Suktam for 6 months without even telling you why. In today's day and time, it's difficult. The first question comes as why at times. So how do you build that also is very important. Shraddha.
Yeah, I mean, I would like my students to ask me why, but we never asked Sir. I'm sure if we asked, he would have told us why, but we never asked him. And the other thing about the Adhyatmika Krama is education. You know, a student can come for therapy and just believe that I have to do movements and breathing and I will be fine. One has to know that yoga can offer you so much more. It's about the mind, it's about the inward journey, you know, even bringing in aspects from Yoga Sutra, from Bhagavad Gita, actually bringing in these little seeds that can be planted in the mind of the individual will take the person a long way because they will get interested. They will learn to see that yoga is so much more than what it is offering them currently. And then the journey can continue, more in that direction. Otherwise, they will just look at it as some kind of therapy. Instead of physical therapy, they can come for yoga therapy. But this is so much more. It's like an ocean. So to introduce that is also important for a teacher. I just end with one small thing that I heard from one of the students of Krishnamacharya who comes to me for her practice. She's in the 80s. She said that as a child, she has gone to him, and at the end of the practice, he will make you lie down, just rest. And at that time, he will just bring one concept from Bhagavad Gita or Yoga. So he'll just make one statement, just one statement. And after 70 years, somebody is able to remember that statement. Imagine that. Okay, that is Adhyatma Vidya. You plant it when the mind is quiet. Just plant it, leave it. That's all. It will have its own energy. That is Adhyatma Vidya. And the teacher has to be fully present to know now what can I offer. So the Adesha of the Manomaya has to bring forth that and say, okay, this is what I can offer.
So what I see is that it is while the whole natural progression happens within that, the evolution of the self also happens, and there is this undercurrent that is constantly there, and it just makes the whole life more alive. That's what I feel, or more meaning out of it. Not in terms of getting something, but just being that, and it just gradually leads us. So it's a very beautiful framework given by Sri Krishnamacharya. Amazing. So, you at Yoga Vahini, you have this sequence established. So, do you? So, there are so many models that also overlap. So, you talked about the Panchamaya, and then you talked about another concept. Then we talk about these Kramas, and then the Ayurvedic intervention and the Nadi Cikitsa happens. So, there are so many components to it. So it's then again, as I understand, maybe it's again a very individualized approach of what to pick and how to create a practice for a person, and again, which is evolving with the person changing with the practice. So, am I on the right track?
Yeah. Uh, But the study of these frameworks has to be at the level that one is able to integrate it, internalize it, and then let it come through. Not that I'm thinking, okay, now I should apply this framework to this person and this is how I have to think. Not using the Manomaya. The Manomaya helps you to receive that knowledge, internalize it, think about it, reflect on it. But when the mind is really quiet, then these things come together in a beautiful way, right? So the Manomaya has to be nourished constantly through study, through reflection, through actually working with students, working with different teachers, so that we all can bring in different perspectives. And
There's
that
a
learning as
spontaneous
a
outcome
community,
that happens.
yeah, learning as a community is very, very important. Not just saying, okay, I will work with a book or I will just learn with one teacher. I think there is value in actually staying in one tradition and really learning how to internalize all this so that then that will come to you. You don't have to work so hard. I often feel that when you're looking at a student for therapy, these frameworks are working in your mind, but at a very subconscious level. They're not working at a conscious. I'm not trying to think about these things. If my mind can be quiet, if I can listen, if I can observe, okay, and make a connection to that student, I think listening, observing, and making this deep connection with somebody will already make some changes in the way you're looking, and you will be able to use what's appropriate. Sometimes a student asks me, what is your thinking process for you to give this particular sequence for the student? I can give some logical explanation for why I chose Apanasana, why I chose this particular modification of this posture, why I chose this way to breathe. But there's something that happens inside you that's very organic, that you cannot explain. You can only do that through observation, through listening. That's why I feel sometimes it's good that you're not questioning too much, but just work with it and observe it and experiment with it yourself. Then a lot more can come through. And it's very rational. It is not a process that is beyond the rational mind. But there is only so far a rational mind can go. Beyond that, you have to uh, trust a deeper intelligence, that works silently.
Like you said, only we move into that silent space. This force fitting or logical interpretations, while they are important, they can stay and then something more can be added,
Right.
which comes spontaneously because of the samskaras that have gone in, because of maybe self inquiry, self practice, and gradually it's not that you take tools and make it a holistic practice, it evolves by itself as a holistic practice.
Initially, we may
So,
do that. Initially we may do that. Over the years, you realize that's not the way it works. It works differently. So, working with a teacher, having a personal mentor who would guide you through the practice and your learning over a long period of time is extremely important. Working with the community is very important. And of course, working with oneself.
but like you said, this community thing, something comes across as very, very powerful and strong thing to have because there's always a feedback that keeps
Yeah.
happening or exchange that happens that helps in the process. So while we are with ourselves, of course, all the time, but sometimes we also get to tend to get stuck. So in the community, that free flowing, there is no stagnancy.
Yeah.
So I think that's a wonderful thing
Yeah.
that you brought about today.
Yeah.
So thank you, Saraswati. Thank you for sharing your valuable time with us. And today, very beautifully, you've just charted out how, while it seems like a very nice framework, it's just so natural and it just evolves by itself. And we are actually what all we are doing is to align to the natural flow of evolution. And the moment we start aligning there, that inner alignment starts coming by itself. So thank you so much for sharing these concepts with us today.
Thank you for beautifully summarizing everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
thank you all for joining us today. We have yet another session, something very interesting coming up in the upcoming sessions. We have been dealing with we've talked about the principles of asana and then the chanting, bhavana. We talked about the kramas, Cikitsa. One of the sessions we also plan to talk about the population, children who come with special needs and how to address that population, something very close to my heart, maybe. So I invite you all to join us for those upcoming sessions. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Namaste everyone, a very warm welcome. Today we are very excited to announce teacher training program at Damru. This teacher training is happening at Damru in collaboration with Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. So I'm so happy to invite Ms. Nritya Jagannathan. She is the director of KYM Institute of Yoga Studies. And I just hand over to her because she's the best person to explain you what exactly we are getting into.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Namaskaram. On this occasion of Damru's anniversary, it gives me great joy to announce on behalf of the KYM the upcoming Yoga Teacher Training Certificate Program offered by the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram in collaboration with Damru Studios, Ahmedabad. This is the first time that this very intensive teacher training course comes to the western part of India at Ahmedabad. As many of you may be well aware, the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram is a world-renowned center founded by Sri T.K.V. Desikachar in 1976 as a tribute to his father, teacher, and legendary yogi Sri Krishnamacharya. Founded as primarily a center for yoga therapy, over the years, the KYM also has acquired fairly solid reputation for its training programs, both in yoga studies as also healing chants, as these are fundamental even to the process of application of yoga tools. In this context, Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram and Damaru come together to offer you this 800-hour yoga teacher training program. 800 hours is inclusive of both the classroom and non-classroom hours, including personal study, project preparations, assignments, observation, internship, and so on. This program follows a syllabus that has been designed by the Academic Council of KY, following very closely the guidelines laid down by Sri T.K.V. Desikachar when he first conceived this program. The syllabus includes a very deep study of the classical techniques of asana, classical techniques of pranayama, the theory of asana, the fundamental theoretical principles of asana, modifications of asanas to suit people of different capabilities, theory and practice of dhyanam, apart from which there is also certain associated study such as the history and evolution of yoga, a deep study of the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali covering all 4 chapters of the text, an exposure to other yoga literature such as the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Rahasya and the Yoga Yajnavalkya Samhita. Apart from this, students will go through a study in certain allied subjects in every module of the training, fundamentals of anatomy and physiology, fundamentals of Ayurveda, and also an introduction to psychology. Apart from this, chanting of the Yoga Sutra will also be an integral part of the study modules. Now, this course requires, unlike many other short term courses, is designed to run for a period of about 18 months in the hybrid mode. A big part of the learning will happen with teachers from the KYM teaching in person at Damru Studio, Ahmedabad, with a portion of the subjects also being conducted online. Through the process of every module of training, there will be ongoing assessments, evaluations, discussions, and so on, culminating in a graduation where you will be certified. Those who graduate will be certified as yoga teachers in the tradition of the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. The Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram is one of the leading yoga institutes of India, recognized by the Yoga Certification Board under the Ministry of Ayush. And this level of training, this 800-hour teacher training course, will prepare students to be able to take the level 3 exam of the Yoga Certification Board. Also, this program is eligible to be recognized under the 500-hour advanced certificate program of the Indian Yoga Association as well. And with these words, I would like to invite those of you who are interested in a deep, serious study of yoga philosophy, yoga psychology, its practice, and its application from a very reputed tradition, one that is known the world over, to go through this process, which not only helps you to qualify yourself as a as a yoga teacher, as a teacher of yoga from a very reputed tradition, it can also offer much by way of reflective food for thought, offering a way to reflect on, to understand various life processes, to understand how the mind works, and through this understanding, to integrate the philosophy into our living, so to effect an overall transformation in our lives itself. And here I speak for so many hundreds of students, both Indian and international, who have gone through this training and who have benefited greatly from the value that this program can bring to you both professionally and personally. For further details, please do reach out to Mauli, who will be coordinating with us in running the course at Damru. And with these words, I take your leave, and we look forward to having a very good registration for this program that the KYM is offering for the very first time at Ahmedabad. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you, ma'am. Gujarat welcomes the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. The privilege is ours. A very ancient parampara is coming to this part of India. And I urge all of you to take advantage of that, to get into an in-depth exploration of the yogic studies. All our contact details are there in the description box. DAMARU, www.damaru.in is our website. Realm of Damru is our handle on Facebook, Instagram, and you will get all the details. So do reach out and register, because another aspect of this tradition is that we do not take trainings or trainees in large numbers. So there's a very limited amount of seats that we're offering for this training, so that we could get deeply involved. So get in touch and see you on the other side. Thank you.